That leads us to our very popular Todd's Odds segment with our popular sports betting expert, Todd Fuhrman. It's all brought to you by FanDuel, so we are down to the Final Four, Todd, for both the men's and the women's NCAA tournaments. Both of the overwhelming favorites are still alive, so I'm just going to start at the men's side. Are you taking UConn, Todd, or are you taking the field?
Well, Jay, I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't send your private jet to help UConn get out of Hartford a little bit earlier than anticipated. Some aviation problems, going to throw their schedule off a little bit, but we know champions have to deal with adversity. And I think when you look at UConn over the last two seasons, 10-0 straight up in the big dance, 10-0 where it matters most at the betting window in terms of exceeding odds makers' expectations. I think it's UConn's national championship to lose, but as a college basketball fan, all of us should be excited about the prospects of Purdue against UConn on Monday night if the seeds hold there. In terms of betting-wise, though, look, minus $1.85, I don't think you're stealing. If UConn takes on Purdue in the national championship, by betting UConn on the money line against Alabama and then following that up again on Monday night, it'll actually give you a slightly more advantageous price.
Okay, let's talk about the women's side. And, you know, the Caitlin Clark story has been incredible, but her team, Iowa, still a distant second choice to win the title. It's South Carolina. They are incredible, Todd, as you know, 36-0 all year. Are you backing the overwhelming favorites to win the title?
Look, Coach Staley deserves a ton of credit. She has built an absolute juggernaut down there in Columbia. And this Gamecocks team, even when they dealt with a couple of haymakers against the Hoosiers to get to this point, had answers late in that contest. And there's a reason that they are a double-digit favorite in their Final Four matchup. And as you alluded to, Jay, overwhelming favorites to be national champions. When you look at that Iowa game against UConn, I think there's a ton of star power there. We know about Caitlin Clark, but how quickly we forget Paige Beckers was the #1 recruit and arguably the most touted recruit in UConn history. Forced to rehab that lower body injury, but you saw her pedigree on full display, willing that team across the finish line against USC. I think South Carolina cuts down the nets, but I think the real showpiece of that Final Four will be the star power on display between Iowa and UConn Friday night.
So much happening in sports on Wednesday, Todd, as you know. We're going to get to hockey in just a second. But I got to ask you about the Stefon Diggs trade. As we told you earlier in the show, Stefon Diggs traded from the Bills to the Houston Texans on Wednesday. Now, Buffalo, Todd, still a slight favorite to win the AFC East at plus 160. Do you still like their chances to win this division? Do you think they have enough firepower?
You know, it's a great question, and I wouldn't be running to the window to back the Bills to win the division, although I think when you look from top to bottom, the Miami Dolphins have plenty of questions they'll have to answer. I get some of the optimism around the Jets as they went to the retirement home to bring in some offensive line reinforcements to hopefully protect Aaron Rodgers. That defense will be as stout as ever, and New England remains a rebuilding project. But, Jay, what I think is so fascinating about this move from Buffalo, they're able to get draft capital in the second round, and they were so eager to get Stefon Diggs out of that locker room that they took a $31 million dead cap hit. So I think it may be a half step back this year for the Bills that have some questions. Defensively, they'll have to answer as well to go forward just in time for a brand new, beautiful stadium in Western New York. But I still believe the Bills are the rightful favorites in the AFC East. I just think their ceiling is capped this year when you look at how powerful that conference is now from top to bottom.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Let's go back to hockey now. Back at the end of January, Todd, you said it was still worth grabbing a piece of Connor McDavid to win the Hart at plus 430. I think the real number we should have grabbed was the Art Ross at plus 3,300. Like you said before, you can never count out Connor McDavid in a points race, can you?
It's incredible. I mean, just when you think you've seen it all from number 97, he goes out there and puts 4 assists on the board in 60 minutes. He's more than content putting up 6 points over a 2-game span, and he can do it so many different ways. We saw his goal-scoring prowess on full display last season. This year, he probably came in with the mindset, you know what? That was too easy for me. I'm going to get my teammates involved, and you get the 50-goal season from Zach Hyman. We know what Leon Draisaitl brings to the table, so Connor McDavid decides, I'm going to go out there and try and get to the century mark with assists, and I would love to have a little bit of exposure in my portfolio there from a betting standpoint at 33-1. I don't think he's going to get there for some of the other awards that are out there, given what we're seeing from Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, and such. But it will be fun to watch to see if Connor McDavid finishes atop the heap when it comes to total points this year.
As I let you go, buddy, did you ever get in like a line brawl like the Rangers and Devils did on Wednesday night when you played college hockey?
Funny story. I never got into a line brawl. I may have incited one in a major championship when we played for the U.S. Nationals in lovely Bismarck, North Dakota. I got a little liberal with my blocker, may have hit an opponent in the stomach, allowed my defense to clean up the dirty work. But the better story, Jay, that I think you would appreciate, so I was a backup netminder for a good portion of my college hockey career. I actually got into a fight with our starting goalie, not during practice or on the ice, but during intramural softball during the spring. That's just the kind of love that you show. And had we known that embracing that goalie hug like we see in Boston from Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman was socially acceptable back then, we might have been able to walk arm in arm down the aisle singing Kumbaya with one another.
Just the way you and I do at the end of every one of these segments every single week. Todd, you're the best. Thanks for this, buddy.
Always a pleasure.